Good evening, everybody. Today we'll be doing phylum Coelenterata. Correct? In our previous classes, we did two phyla. First one was Protozoa. Second was Porifera. Now, if you see, today we'll do Coelenterata. If you see that protozoans, they were one-celled, right? Their single cell was carrying all its vital activity to survive. They were living on their own independently. Poriferans, if you see, all these cells they aggregated together to form something like sponge. And sponge, if you see, they were all diploblastic. They were two layered. Outer layer was known as pinacoderm and inner layer was known as choanoderm. You know very well. And the cavity was known as spongocoel. Here, coelenterata, if you see, it is again, diploblastic. Coelenterata is again diploblastic. It is also made up of two layer. We'll be doing in due course, and they also have a cavity that here I'll just say, although it is known as paragastral cavity, say coelom, and from coelom they have been termed as coelenterata. So here I just like मैं आपको क्या बताना चाहती हूँ कि प्रोटोजोन जो है सबसे ज़्यादा प्रिमिटिव थे, उनसे ज़्यादा एडवांस्ड पॉरीफेरा हुए इन ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ एवोल्यूशन, और पॉरीफेरा से जो है सीलेंट्रेटा जो है जो ज़्यादा एडवांस्ड इवॉल्व हुए. वो एडवांस्ड कैरेक्टर्स क्या क्या थे वो हम अभी विल सी वन बाय वन. सो फर्स्ट विल सी फर्स्ट कैरेक्टर हैबिटेट. हैबिटेट क्या होता है? दिस इज द प्लेस वेर एन इंडिविजुअल लिव्स. See, most of the coelentrates, they are marine in nature. Very few are freshwater form. Porifera में भी ऐसे ही हुआ था ना. और इफ़ यू सी जो वे बहुत कॉमन एग्जाम्पल है जो फ्रेश वाटर coelenterate का है वो है हाइड्रा जस्सी. This is freshwater form. Another, characteristic of habitat is, if you see, most of the coelentrates, they are sedentary. Sedentary means वो जो है they do not move freely here and there. They remain sticked onto the surface, or I would say onto the substrate. ठीक है. जैसे कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल जितने भी कॉरल है, जैसे ये देखो, ये कॉरल है, ये दिस कॉरल विल रिमेन स्टिक्ड ऑन वन प्लेस ओनली, इट विल नॉट मूव. वेयर एज इफ यू सी Aurelia, or also known as jellyfish, right? It is free swimming. Aurelia is free swimming, whereas Physalia, if you this is Physalia. Physalia is free floating. करेक्ट. और दे मे बी एपिजोइक. जूएंथस है, जैसे जूएंथस क्या है? एपिजोइक है. एपिजोइक का मतलब समझते हो कि जब एक इंडिविजुअल बड़े हार्मलेस वे में दूसरे एनिमल्स पर रहे, उसे हम कहते हैं एपिजोइक. तो जूएंथस जो है वो एपिजोइक के दूसरे कॉरल्स के ऊपर रहता है. और दे में शो सिम्बायोसिस, जैसे एडेम्शिया है. ये देखो, this is Adamsia, if you see. Or you see here Adamsia is showing symbiotic relationship. कैसे? ये है hermit crab. और this is Adamsia, right? Now hermit crab और Adamsia क्या है? Symbiotic relation, symbiosis show करते हैं. कैसे? कि hermit crab से उन्हें लोकोमोशन मिलता है, और हर्मिट क्रैब को क्या मिलता है? एडेम्शिया से प्रोटेक्शन मिलता है. करेक्ट. सो इस तरह दे शो एडेम्शिया. इफ यू सी coelenterate, दे इट शोज symbiotic relationship. Another characteristic, if you see that some coelentrates they are solitary. जैसे ये अभी दिखाया था मैंने, हाइड्रा जो है वो solitary है. दिस इज solitary also. ये देखो हाइड्रा जो है इट इज़ नॉट फाउंड इन ग्रुप्स, वेर एज अदरवाइज मोस्ट ऑफ द सीलेंट्रेट्स दे आर कॉलोनियल। ये देखो जितने भी सीलेंट्रेट्स हैं दे ऑल आर कॉलोनियल, करेक्ट। Now, next characteristic, if we see organization. ठीक है, यहाँ पर जो सेल्स हैं डिफरेंट सेल्स हैं, दे हैव बीन स्पेशलाइज्ड टू फॉर्म अ पर्टिकुलर फंक्शन, इसीलिए हम कहेंगे कि जो इसकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है वो टिश्यू ग्रेड ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है। ठीक है, ज़्यादातर सेल्स देखा जाए, हालांकि जो भी सेल्स हैं दे ऑल हैव बीन स्कैटर्ड, बट क्योंकि एक इनका जो नर्वस सिस्टम है वो नर्व नेट लेवल तक डेवलप्ड है, इसीलिए उन स्कैटर्ड सेल्स में भी आपस में कोऑर्डिनेशन है, करेक्ट। सो दे शो टिश्यू ग्रेड ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। थर्ड कैरेक्टरिस्टिक if you see is symmetry. You know that symmetry depends on the shape of the animal, correct? So most of the coelentrates, if you see, they are radially symmetrical, right? Radially symmetrical में भी they can be tetramerous. Tetramerous का मतलब क्या है कि the animal can be divided into four equal parts uh, or into multiple of four parts, right? So body is divided into either four parts or it is divided into multiple of four parts, correct? Or they may show hexamerous radial symmetry, that means body may be divided into six equal parts or multiple of six parts, correct? Or if I show you, you know, here if you see, in case of Aurelia, if you see, Aurelia show tetramerous radial symmetry, right? Whereas if you see, I'll just show you. You see fungia. Fungia shows hexamerous radial symmetry. This is acropora. Acropora also shows hexamerous radial symmetry, correct? Biradial symmetry in coelenterate is seen in C anemone. This is C anemone. This shows biradial symmetry. That means body can be divided into two equal halves by only two vertical planes, correct? So that is why if you see, since the coelenterate they show radial symmetry or they are radially symmetrical, इसीलिए coelentrates को ग्रुप रेडिएटा में भी इंक्लूड किया जाता है, करेक्ट? नाउ वी कम टू द नेक्स्ट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक, दैट इज जर्म लेयर्स। जैसा कि हमने इंट्रोडक्शन में डिस्क्राइब किया था, ये जो है डिप्लोब्लास्टिक है, राइट? यानी कि जो इनका गैस्ट्रोला लार्वा है दैट इज मेड अप ऑफ टू लेयर, एक्टोडर्म and endoderm, correct? So it is diploblastic. Now we come to the next characteristic, that is body wall. Same here, जैसा कि अडल्ट लार्वा में एक्टोडर्म और एंडोडर्म है, सेम वे अडल्ट की भी जो बॉडी है वो भी इन्हीं दो लेयर से बनी है। एक्टोडर्म हैज इज बिन मॉडिफाइड ओवर हेयर एज एपिडर्मिस, और एंडोडर्म को यहाँ पर क्या कहा जाता है, गैस्ट्रोडर्मिस, करेक्ट? नाउ इफ यू सी दैट अगेन वहाँ पर क्या था, पॉरीफेरा में एपिडर्मिस और पॉरीफेरा में पिनाकोडर्म और कोएनोडर्म के बीच में मीजनकाइम था। सेम वे यहाँ पे एपिडर्मिस और गैस्ट्रोडर्मिस के बीच में भी एक इसी तरह का लेयर है जिसको हम कहते हैं मीजोग्लिया, बट यहाँ पे मीजोग्लिया थोड़ा ज़्यादा डेवलप्ड है, ऑलमोस्ट इट इज़ ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल टू और इक्विवेलेंट टू मीजोडर्म, correct? Now if you see that epidermis over here, it performs the epidermal cells, they perform variety of functions. They can be, protective in nature, they are secretory in nature, they show a muscular characteristic, they are sensory in nature, they are nervous, plus they are reproductive in function. So you can see that epidermal cells, they are being modified into various types to perform these many functions. Another characteristic of epidermis is that there is a specialized cell which we call as nidoblast cell. So, what is nidoblast? I'll just show you. Yes, just see. This is nidoblast. Can you see? Right? This is a cell. The cell has been modified in such a way that one of its end has been produced into thread tube. And this thread tube, if you see, that it injects hypnotoxin into the body of the prey to paralyze it. Correct. That is why this cell is nidoblast. This is the characteristic feature of Coelenterata. That is why coelentrates are also known as nidaria. Correct. Same way. This was epidermis. Same way, if you see gastrodermis, the inner layer is known as gastrodermis. Gastrodermis also perform various functions. That means it is digestive in nature, it is circulatory in nature, it is muscular in nature, right? And it is absorptive in function. Correct. It is carrying out these many activities. And apart from this, they have certain columnar specialized cells which we call as uh, and this digestive, circulatory, muscular, and absorptive function is carried out by specialized cells which we call as gastrodermal cells. And if you see the speciality of this gastrodermal cell, I'll just show you. This is, gastrodermal cell. You'll see that it has, on its inner side, it is showing two flagella, right? And the cell, if you see, it is columnar in shape, and these are the various food vacuoles present in it, right? If I take example of obelia, right, and I'll show you, just see, can you see? This is vertical vs of obelia. The inner side is, these are all, these are all gastrodermal cells. These are the flagellated gastrodermal cells, and you see these cells, these are the epidermal cells. And if you see the tentacle is full of nidoblast cells. Correct? Okay. Apart from this, gastrodermis as well as epidermis, if you see, they have a specialized cell, or you can say a totipotent cell, which is interstitial cells. So these cells are not differentiated. These are undifferentiated cells which can, when the need arises, these interstitial cells, they can differentiate. Interstitial cells in gastrodermis differentiates into gastrodermal cells to carry out these functions. Same way, these interstitial cells, when present in epidermis, they can get modified into epidermal cells to perform all these functions. So the interstitial cells, they are present on both the layers separately. Correct. Now the next category, next function character is cavity, right? As I told you that coelentrates, they have a central cavity which is known as coelentron. This coelentron is also known as gastrovascular cavity, right? And this gastrovascular cavity, it helps in digestion and circulation of food. But this coelom, this cavity or this coelom, it is not true coelom. What is the difference between so you can say it is pseudocoelom. That is why coelentrates are also known as acoelomates. Why? Because they do not possess true coelom. True coelom में क्या होता है? True coelom is always surrounded by mesoderm layer. If you see this is cavity, it will be surrounded by something like mesodermal cells like this. It is formed by the splitting of mesodermal layer. Correct? True coelom. So if you see here, the coelom is not true, so they are also known as acoelomates. Now, next characteristic, if you see, is body form. If you see that, as I told you, that some coelentrates are solitary, जैसे कि hydra है, but ज़्यादातर most of the coelentrates are colonial. They live in colonies. Right? I'll just show you one example of obelia. Just see, this is obelia. Right? If you see these structures, this flower-like structure, this is known as polyp. These structures, if you see, this is known as blastostyle. Right? And in the blastocell, there are certain saucer-shaped structures which we call as medusa. Correct? So if you see these structures, they have a common name which we call as zooids. So polyp is one zooid, blastostyle is one zooid. Right? So if you see that polyp form and blastostyle form, if you see that they are, stationary, they remain at one place, whereas if you see the medusa which is released from blastostyle, right, it is free swimming. Understood? So medusa is free swimming, whereas polyp and blastostyle are fixed at one position. So that is why there is a polymorphism is the characteristic feature of coelentrates. Why? You see within one one colony, one form is polyp, another is blastocyle, third is medusa, performing different functions. So coelentrates, they show polymorphism in colonies. करेक्ट. नाउ सॉलिटरी का जैसे मैंने एग्जाम्पल बता दिया हाइड्रा है, कॉलोनी का भी जैसे मैंने बताया ओबेलिया है, फाइसेलिया है, वेलेला है, पॉर्पिटा है, they all are colonial. Now next characteristic if you see is skeleton. See, most of the coelentrates, they have skeletal structures. Very few like sea anemone. अभी जस्ट मैंने आपको सी एनिमोन का आई थिंक आई शो यू द diagram of sea anemone, that how sea anemone look. Just see sea anemone, if you see there is no hard skeletal structure, it looks like flower, so it lacks sea anemone lacks skeletal structure. But most of the coelentrate, if you see, they have exoskeleton. Just for example obelia, I'll just show you. Just see, can you see this hard structure, this transparent structure? This is known as perisarc. Right? So perisarc is present in obelia. Same is the case with tubularia also. Just see, this is tubularia. Can you see this outer transparent structure? Right? This structure, this is perisarc. So this is the exoskeletal part of obelia and tubularia. Same way, if you see that this is millipora, right? If you see that massive calcareous, this massive calcareous structure is known as cenosteum. So cenosteum is the exoskeletal part of the millipora. Same way, if you see in case of gorgonia, can you see horny structure, fan-like structure of gorgonia? Correct. Now, if you see this is madrepora, can you see this, structure? This is known as corellum. Corellum is again, skeletal part of the madrepora. Right. Sometimes this is our exoskeleton. Sometimes, endoskeleton is also present. Just see, this is Alcyonium. If you see in case of Alcyonium, can you see between this is outer is epidermis, inner is gastrodermis. Between epidermis and gastrodermis, can you see this spicule? This is one spicule, this is one spicule. So endoskeleton may be present in the mesoglial layer of the Alcyonium. Correct. Sometimes, fluid is also present in the gastrovascular cavity, acting as hydraulic skeleton. Fluid acts as hydraulic skeleton. Correct. Now, after skeleton comes nutrition. Right. All the coelentrates, they are carnivores or they are carnivorous and holozoic. They take the whole food in and later on it is digested. Right. The coelentron cavity, it acts as digestive cavity. I'll just show you again the structure of obelia. Just see. Can you see? The food is taken with the help of the tentacles. The food is held, and with the help of tentacles, the food is moved to the mouth, and from the mouth, the food comes to lie in the this is gastrovascular cavity. Correct. Now, if you see that the uh, after that, after gastrovascular cavity, you find the alimentary canal incomplete. Correct. So there is incomplete gut. The other parts of the digestive system are absent. So whatever activity takes place, that takes place in the coelentron or in this coelom. Now what happens is that here the food is digested, absorbed and adjusted out through this cavity through mouth. Correct. Now if you see, digestion here is partly intracellular, that means it takes place in the cavity. It is intercellular, that means it takes place in the cavity, and intracellular, the cells lining these cells which are lining the coelentron, they carry out intracellular digestion. Right. If you see that coelentrates, they cannot digest starch because they do not have enzyme, amylase enzyme to digest the starch. Coelentron, if you see, in case of hydra, it is unbranched. Right. Whereas in case of jellyfish, Aurelia, it is divided into various compartments. Coelentron. Correct. After nutrition, we move on to the next characteristic, that is respiration. Respiration, if you see, the coelentrates are excuse me, aerobic. All right. And respiration occurs through general body surface. Next is excretion. If you see that the coelentrates, they are ammoniotelic in nature, they release ammonia as their nitrogenous waste material, and this exchange also occurs through general body surface. Next characteristic is circulation, right? If you see circulation ke liye they do not have separate system. Even in digestion they have got incomplete alimentary canal. There is no separate respiratory system, no excretory system. Same way there is no separate circulatory system. बट फूड जो है वो सीलेंट्रॉन में सर्कुलेट करता है विद द हेल्प ऑफ flagella of the gastrodermal cell or by the peristaltic movement of the coelentron, right? So this way the food moves, and that way it get in touch with the gastrodermal cells for absorption. Now next is nervous system. और if you see, हमने जब बताया था कि here you see when we were doing that they are in case of epidermis there are certain cells which are sensory in nature, right? There are certain cells which are nervous in nature. So that means there is a little bit development of system, nervous system, although of very low level. So here, if you see neurons, they are not defined into dendrite and axon. Just the neurons are there. Say this is neuronal cells showing branches like this. Multipolar neuron. My nervous system consists of multipolar polar neurons. If you see that गैस्ट्रोडर्मिस लेयर और एपिडर्मिस लेयर के नीचे की तरफ दोनों लेयर्स में नेटवर्क ऑफ न्यूरॉन है. सो हेयर द न्यूरॉन इज प्लेक्सिफॉर्म एंड डिफ्यूज्ड, राइट? अगर मैं आपको डायग्राम में दिखाऊं, जस्ट सी यहाँ पर क्या है. इफ़ यू सी दिस इज एपिडर्मिस लेयर, तो एपिडर्मिस लेयर के नीचे यहाँ पर क्या है, डिफ्यूज टाइप ऑफ नर्वस सिस्टम. सेम वे गैस्ट्रोडर्मिस लेयर के नीचे यहाँ पर क्या है, देयर इज डिफ्यूज एंड प्लेक्सिफॉर्म नर्वस सिस्टम. एंड मोर ओवर द नर्वस सिस्टम ओवर दे हैव यूज्ड द टर्म साइनेप्टिक. साइनेप्टिक का मतलब क्या है, गैप होता है दो न्यूरॉन्स के बीच में, जिसको हम साइनेप्स कहते हैं. इस तरह के कॉन्टैक्ट को हम साइनेप्टिक न्यूरॉन्स कहते हैं, साइनेप्टिक नर्वस सिस्टम कहते हैं. यहाँ पर सेंट्रल नर्वस सिस्टम या इस तरह जो स्पेशलाइज नहीं है, बट अ डिफ्यूज्ड प्लेक्सिफॉर्म नर्वस सिस्टम इज देयर इन द coelentrates. Correct. Next characteristic is sensory structures. अगर आप देखोगे तो यहाँ पर एपिडर्मिस और गैस्ट्रोडर्मिस में दोनों जगह जो है देयर आर सर्टेन स्पेशलाइज्ड सेल्स विच वी कॉल एज सेंसरी सेल्स, राइट? यहाँ पर दीज सेंसरी सेल्स दे हैव बीन ऑर्गेनाइज्ड टू फॉर्म ऑसिलाई. ऑसिलाई का काम क्या है, यानी कि कोई जो सेल्स हैं they have been modified in such a way to perform the function of photoreception. इनका जो साइट ऑसिलाई का जो सेंसरी सेल है विच इज एक्टिंग एज ऑसिलाई, इसमें जो साइटोप्लाज्म है दैट एक्ट्स एज लेंस. सेम वे फ्यू सम सेल्स दे एक्ट एज दे सम सेंसरी सेल्स दे फॉर्म ऑल्फैक्टरी पिट्स, जिनका काम क्या है, स्मेलिंग, राइट? Some sensory cells have been modified to form statocysts, whose function is equilibrium of the body. Correct. Now, last point is reproduction and development. If you see, as far as reproduction is concerned, it shows asexual reproduction as well as sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction occur by external budding, right? Sexual reproduction, if you see, as I showed you in the diagram also, जैसे कि ये ओबेलिया का डायग्राम दिखाया था मैंने. इफ़ यू सी दीज स्ट्रक्चर्स, ये क्या है, ब्लास्टोस्टाइल है. ब्लास्टोस्टाइल जो है क्या रिलीज करता है, ब्लास्टोस्टाइल रिलीजेस मेड्यूसा. कैन यू सी दिस मेड्यूसा, इफ यू सी इट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर सेक्शुअल रिप्रोडक्शन. राइट ये जो है, ये जो जोइड है, ये सेक्शुअल जोइड है या मेड्यूसी है, ये क्या करती है, ये कैन यू सी देर आर यू नो these are the gametes, gonads. 4 gonads are there, और ये gonads, can you see 1 2 3 4, these gonads release gametes which are responsible for sexual reproduction. Correct. दिस इज अनदर one अनदर मेड्यूसी. और ये मेड्यूसी कहाँ से रिलीज हुई है, ये मेड्यूसी ब्लास्टोस्टाइल रिलीज करता है. ये देखो गोनोथिक है, यहाँ से ये मेड्यूसी रिलीज होती है. करेक्ट. Now if you see that here also fertilization can be internal or external. Jellyfish में if you see इसमें internal fertilization होती है, whereas ओबेलिया में, इसमें जो है ओबेलिया में एक्सटर्नल फर्टिलाइजेशन होती है. आफ्टर फर्टिलाइजेशन जाइगोट इज फॉर्म. दैट जाइगोट इफ यू सी इट अंडरगोज क्लीवेज. और क्लीवेज कैसी होती है, हॉलोब्लास्टिक. हॉलोब्लास्टिक क्लीवेज का मतलब क्या है कि जैसे ये एग है, क्लीवेज विल स्टार्ट फ्रॉम वन एंड एंड इट विल कंप्लीट गो टिल द लास्ट एंड, डिवाइडिंग इनटू the zygote into 2 equal blastomeres. Correct. इस तरह की क्लीवेज बोलते हैं हॉलोब्लास्टिक. एंड रेडियल, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय रेडियल क्लीवेज, जैसे अब ये सेल है तो ये 2 इक्वल हाफ में डिवाइड हुआ. अगर अगला क्लीवेज होता है तो इस तरह जो है 2 ब्लास्टोमियर्स. जब जो रिजल्टेंट ब्लास्टोमियर्स हैं वो एक दूसरे के ऊपर इस तरह रेडियली प्लेस्ड होते हैं तो हम उसको कहते हैं रेडियल क्लीवेज. So holoblastic and radial cleavage is seen in coelentrates. Correct. Now generally what happens is that development जो है वो indirect होता है, यानी कि एक larval stage होती है. that larva is known as planula larva. वहाँ पर कौन सा था पॉरीफेरा में, amphiblastula. यहाँ पर जो लार्वा है वो है planula larva. राइट. और planula larva जो है it undergoes protostomous metamorphosis. प्रोटोस्टोमस मेटामॉर्फोसिस क्या होता है, जब गैस्ट्रुलेशन होती है ना तो एक पोर फॉर्म होता है यहाँ पर, मतलब उस पोर को बोलते हैं, वो एक ओपनिंग फॉर्म होती है, उसको बोलते हैं ब्लास्टोपोर. तो जब ब्लास्टोपोर जो है माउथ बनाता है फ्यूचर में जाके, उस तरह के मेटामॉर्फोसिस को बोलते हैं प्रोटोस्टोमस मेटामॉर्फोसिस. करेक्ट. अनदर फीचर इफ यू सी इन सीलेंट्रेट्स, इसमें आप देखो मैंने तुम्हें दिखाया था ना कि एक ये फॉर्म है. I'll just if you see this is the colonial form of obelia, is right. इसमें आप देखो कि अलग अलग जोइड प्रेजेंट है. एक दूसरा फॉर्म है, ये है मेड्यूसा, जो कि क्या है, स्विमिंग फॉर्म है, फ्री फ्लोटिंग फॉर्म है. करेक्ट. तो जो लाइफ हिस्ट्री है वो जो है दो के बीच में, दिस इज फिक्स्ड, दिस इज फिक्स्ड, दिस इज यू कैन मोबाइल फॉर्म. राइट. सो इस तरह की जब लाइफ हिस्ट्री में एक फिक्स्ड स्टेज भी होती है, एक मोबाइल स्टेज भी होती है, इस तरह के लाइफ हिस्ट्री को हम कहते हैं, एक फिनोमिनन इसका नाम दिया है, दैट इज मेटाजेनेसिस, ऑल्सो नोन एज ऑल्टरनेशन ऑफ जनरेशन. This is characteristic of coelentrates, right, in which asexual polyploid and sessile generation, if you see this shows this obelia form, if you see this is asexual polyploid and sessile, this particular, right. After that comes another stage which we call as this medusiform, which is sexual free swimming मेड्यूसॉइड जनरेशन. राइट. सो इस तरह जब पॉलीपॉइड जनरेशन ऑल्टरनेट करती है मेड्यूसॉइड जनरेशन के साथ, इसको हम कहते हैं मेटाजेनेसिस और ऑल्टरनेशन ऑफ जनरेशन. करेक्ट. Now I hope all the characteristics are clear to you. Once again, for a very small recapitulation, we'll just do unique features of Coelenterata. It will, these features, they'll just recapitulate the things. First characters, just gist is that the coelentrates, they show tissue level of organization. No organ is formed, only just tissue is formed. एलिमेंट्री कैनाल कैसी थी? गट जो है वो इनकम्प्लीट थी. Just mouth and the gastrovascular cavity was there, or you can say stomach was there. No other organ was there. Another characteristic feature was presence of nidoblast, also known as stinging cells. करेक्ट, जो कि किसके लिए यूज होते हैं? ऑफेंस और डिफेंस के लिए. करेक्ट. Another characteristic feature is digestion. You saw in the coelentron, digestion was both intercellular digestion as well as intracellular digestion. Correct. Most of the coelentrates, they show polymorphism. अभी मैंने दिखाया था ना, zoids है, अलग अलग polyp zoids है, plastostyle है, medusae है. So various forms are present within one colony. इसको हम कहते हैं polymorphism. जो नर्वस सिस्टम है वो कैसा था? एक्सक्यूज मी, डिफ्यूज टाइप ऑफ नर्वस सिस्टम वॉज देयर. इन केस ऑफ मेड्यूसी, मेड्यूसी में मैंने तुम्हें गोनाइड्स दिखाई थी, तो गोनाइड्स कैसी थी? सिंपल गोनाइड्स थी, कोई उसमें गोनोडक्ट नहीं थी. जैसे ओविडक्ट होती है या वास्ट डिफरेंस होता है, वैसे इसमें कोई गोनोडक्ट नहीं थी और सिंपल गोनाइड्स थी. अनदर फीचर इफ यू सी दैट there was presence of planula larva in the life history. Correct.